You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I hope wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing, you are doing magnificently, spiffingly, bloody well. The guest in this episode of the show is a bloke called Cam Maynard, and he is the guitarist in a band from the United States of America called the Contortionist. They are touring across Australia with the band from the UK called Sikth. I'll read out some tour dates. They're all in May. On Wednesday the 2nd, they're playing the Zoo in Brisbane. Thursday the 3rd, they're playing Max Watts in Melbourne. Got to get that right. Friday the 4th, they're playing Sydney at the Manning Bar. Saturday the 5th, they're playing the Gov at Adelaide. And Sunday the 6th, they are playing Roseman Hotel in Perth. Let's hear what Cam has to say. Here we go. Hello, Cam. It's Andy Mackay-Smith calling from Australia, mate. How are you going?
Hey, Andy, what's going on? Doing all right.
Yeah, you in the middle of the Aussie phoner grind at the moment?
Yeah, just did one, and I got one more, and that's done it. So not too shabby.
Oh, yeah. How have they been going, mate? All right.
Yeah, the tour's been great. We're just on a day off right now, here in Richmond, Virginia. The tour's been awesome. We've been kind of setting some of our new records for the band, and it's been really cool. It's been really an awesome, very successful tour thus far, and we're having a blast.
All right, no worries. So tell us about the Clairvoyant. I mean, I've been listening to it as one of those albums that when I got it, I ended up listening to it front to back a couple of times just in the first listening, such as the impact that it had. So I feel it's a prog metal masterpiece in the vein of so many Tool, Dead Letter Circus and Sleep Makes Waves albums. But, mate, ahead of your Australian tour, how would you describe the album?
That's a good question. How would I describe it? I mean, if I'm using those Australian bands that we toured for, that's interesting. That I would have to agree with you. I think naturally we're trying to do something, but just even bands that we tour with, a lot of people don't realize how inspirational that is too. Just from being with those musicians that you play with every day, that even though they might not be the same thing that you're trying to do, it still rubs off. And no matter what band it may be, it still rubs off in some way, shape, or form. But I'd say I'd have to describe it as the reciprocal to language, whereas language was this kind of trying to be like a self-help record and be, philosophical and bright and nurturing. I think Clairvoyant was supposed to be the opposite of that and be more of the straightforward, grounded approach to a similar story that's less based in metaphor and more, I guess, more realism, just more truthful storytelling.
More of a direct experience. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so you are touring Australia with Sikth, and I had a good chat to Mikey ahead of the tour, and he's certainly excited to be touring with you guys. So what can fans expect from the sort of show that you're going to be putting on? We've been doing this headliner here in the States and Canada, and it's been going over well, I think. But we've got to spend some time to add some more things and change the set a little bit for Australia, just because we can, just because we have a little bit of time. So I think it'll be we'll focus on Clairvoyant, but I think we'll hit all of our catalog. And we've got some new production that we've been using. It's been pretty cool seeing some new stuff, being able to implement some new gear, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think, I don't know whether I read this correctly, but it was saying that Robbie isn't touring with the band down to Australia. Is that correct?
Joey is actually.
Joey, sorry.
He's not out with us right now. We've got a fill-in drummer, right? His twin brother, actually. But it's been great. Even though Joe hasn't been out here on the tour, it's been awesome. Johnny Kincanon's been doing a great job, and it's just kind of cool to play with, just hear how someone else interprets, songs that you've been playing for 10 years. in some cases. So it's been kind of refreshing, and he's definitely doing a great job. And I wouldn't recommend anyone else, honestly.
No, fantastic. What's the name of the fill-in drummer, and what band does he come from to fill in for Joey?
He's Johnny Concannon, and he's actually a friend from our hometown, from Ronnie and Joey's hometown in Indiana. He does a lot of studio and session work. He plays for a band called Coven, and he's worked with a lot of people, but it's on a more studio and session basis, that kind of work. But he's been great, and really making it work just fine. So
cool. Now, what's the most memorable tour that you've been on?
I think I don't know. They kind of goes. It's a loaded question. I think the more and more things evolve and get more streamlined, and traveling on a bus and having just things taken care of that you didn't have when you first started touring. I kind of often say that we'll never have that much fun ever again. But I don't mean that in a depressing way. I just think that some of the more vivid memories we have are when we first started touring. We had that kind of the innocence about us, where we might stay with somebody we just met that night at the show because they offered their apartment or whatever.
Nice,
so
yeah.
A lot of things, a lot of different things that you normally wouldn't just dive into, kind of just seem to happen naturally based on those terms. So it's kind of like, I think one of the, like the early Australian tour, the very first time we came to Australia, that was in 2010, November of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And, just because we were staying with, a friend on their floor, we woke up and saw a huntsman spider and had to, they had the whole freak out impression because they'd never seen something like that before. And I don't know. I just think, that's something that I have a vivid memory of. Whereas, some of the more recent tours, they kind of, it seems like less of an experience in a way, just because you don't have that innocence anymore of just random things happening, being a part of your life.
Yeah, it becomes the new normal, doesn't it? So you sort of adapt and acclimatise to what's actually going on. But when you're starting out, everything is new and fresh and exciting, and everything's a learning experience.
Right. And I think traveling abroad is kind of always feels that way naturally. It just feels like a different change of pace, and you don't really know how to manage your day as well as you would in your normal routine when you're at home. So it's cool.
Yeah,
keeps you outside of your comfort zone.
So I had a chat to Robbie about 8 or 9 months back, on the eve of the release of Clairvoyant. So I asked him this question, and I'll ask you now: what bands inspired you to become a musician?
That's great. A band in particular, I would have to say, if I really had to kind of vote and take a poll, I would have to say Coheed and Cambria is a band that got me into the composition. Whereas when I learned how to play guitar, I learned some basic chords and learned how to kind of learn my way around the fretboard. But it wasn't until that band kind of came along where I was like, ooh, I want to try and do something like that in particular. And even though I've been playing guitar for a little while, I think that naturally is what got me to want to play music and compose and be a songwriter.
Fair enough. Now, here's a good question for you, actually. I don't ask too many people this question, but I'm inspired to ask your good self. If it all ended tomorrow, do you think you've achieved everything you wanted to as a musician?
Oh, of course not. No, there's there'll never be a time when I, that's the beauty of the human condition, right? Is that you're never satisfied. It's all relative relative position. I think even if you're, someone like Donald Trump, who's, the president of the United States right now, whether you love him or hate him, it's like he still wants more. He's not satisfied. No one's ever going to be satisfied. There's too many things and too many breaking points. Not just learning information with the guitar, with musical theory and composition. It's more so just constant reflective moments where it's something that you've learned. You're learning something, but you're not really receiving any new information. You're just learning how to kind of organize the information that you've retained in your head. And yeah, I think that's naturally always looking for something else, and always being glad of the insights you currently have.
Yeah,
knowing you didn't have them before. I think that's...
No, fair enough. And final question for you is about Australian fans and listeners. So have you received a lot of feedback from us over the years? I take it that you have, because if you toured here back in 2010, that was fairly early on in the band's career, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think we went over there again with most recently with Sikth Makes Waves, and I think that was the biggest indicator that we still have, we're building our support there, and our fan base is obviously apparent now. Whereas years ago we would be able to go and do a headlining tour, and we didn't have that kind of hype, I guess, or we weren't as well known in the Australian sector.
Yeah,
but I really love Australia, and I see a lot of similarities between the States and Australia, and as far as the entertainment industry, I think it's not so far removed from each other. So I think it's a great market for us to have, because it reminds us a lot of playing here at home.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. I agree with you. I've been to the States a few times now, and look, people talk about the differences, but there's far more that we have in common as a society. And not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I can only really think of, there's only two things about American society that really differ from Australia and vice versa. That's the universal healthcare thing and the gun thing. We don't really have guns in Australia, and we have universal healthcare, and you're on the opposite side of the spectrum to that. But apart from that, they're very similar societies.
Right.
So which city gives you the best feedback in Australia, or the best response in Australia?
I think as far as trying to see a trend and a pattern, I think anytime we play Sydney, I think that's just because it's one of the bigger markets. It's kind of like the New York City show equivalent. I feel like those are generally the biggest venues, the biggest turnouts. But at the same time, I think Melbourne is really. It reminds me of a more academic. It feels like people study music more there, I guess. I don't know. It just seems like more of a crafted atmosphere for music rather than just a commercial atmosphere for music.
Yeah. I think you probably might have it spot on there, actually. I'm just trying to think about what the key differences are. I'm from Brisbane, okay, so we're a bit different. We're a bit more like Florida up here, or San Diego, I suppose.
Right.
A bit more of an outdoor lifestyle sort of thing. So people sort of get into the vibe of music as opposed to music as an intellectual pursuit. I'm not saying everybody does, of course, but that's generally the feedback that I get as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much, mate. I'll definitely try and be in the audience when you guys tour us. So, congratulations on a career to date, mate, and long may you continue to make music.
All right, yeah. Well, thanks for your time, and keep in touch. And I hope to see you soon, maybe when we head down under.
No worries, mate. All right, all the very best, and thank you.
All right, cheers. Have a good day.
You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with Cam Maynard, the guitarist in a band called The Contortionist. Thank you so much for listening.